I want to be honest with you before we begin, because the way this works matters. The title says, "This is a message from your future self," someone who already walked through what you're facing and came out the other side. I can write you something true and worth hearing under that banner. But I won't pretend a voice from the future is literally speaking through me, because that would be a lie dressed up as comfort, and you deserve better than that. What I can offer is the next best thing, and maybe the truer thing, the perspective of a man who has lived long enough to look back at his own worst seasons and finally understand them. Let me write it that way. Walter, talking to you the way I'd talk to my younger self if I could sit across from him. There's a strange thing that happens when you survive something. You don't realize you've survived it until much later. In the middle of it, you're just trying to get through Tuesday. You're not thinking about meaning or growth or any of that. You're thinking about how to pay the thing that's due, how to sleep when your mind won't quiet down, how to walk into a room and act like you're fine when you're not fine at all. And then one day, years later usually, you catch yourself remembering it. And you notice something. You're still here. The thing that felt like it would end, you didn't end you. You're sitting somewhere, breathing, thinking back on it almost like it happened to someone else. My name is Walter. I'm an older man now, and I've earned every gray hair the hard way. I want to talk to you today as if I were the version of you that already made it through. Not because I can see your future, I can't, no honest man can, but because I've lived enough of my own to recognize the shape of what you're inside of right now. The shape doesn't change much from one life to the next. The details do. The shape stays the same. So let me tell you what I know from the far side of it. The first thing is this: what you're going through is not punishment. I know it can feel like it. When everything goes wrong at once, the mind goes looking for a reason. And the easiest reason to reach for is that you did something to deserve it, that you're being corrected, that God turned his face away. I spent a good portion of my middle years believing exactly that, and it nearly hollowed me out, because I couldn't find the sin big enough to explain the size of the trouble. But look at the people Scripture holds up as chosen. Look at what their lives actually contained. Joseph was favored by his father, given dreams that pointed to something larger than himself. And the first fruit of those dreams was a pit, then a slave caravan, then a prison cell on a false charge. Years in the dark, forgotten by a man he'd helped, the cupbearer who walked free and didn't think of him again for 2 full years. If you'd found Joseph in that prison and told him he was chosen, he might have laughed in your face. And yet the whole time, something was being arranged that he could not see. The favor and the suffering were not opposites. They were the same road. That's the part nobody tells you. Being chosen does not mean being spared. It often means the opposite. It means being trusted with a weight that would break most people, because something in you can carry it. I want to be careful here, because I've heard this idea twisted into something ugly. I've heard people use "you're chosen" as a way of saying you're better. That's not what I mean, and it's not what the Scriptures mean either. The chosen in the Bible are not a superior breed. They're often the overlooked one, the younger brother, the foreigner, the widow, with nothing. David was the son they didn't bother calling in from the field when the prophet came to anoint a king. Chosen doesn't mean above, it means assigned. It means there's something with your name on it that the easy life would never have produced in you. Now let me tell you the second thing, and this one took me longer to learn. The worst part of a hard season is rarely the hardship itself. It's the loneliness inside it. It's the sense that no one understands that you're carrying this alone, that even the people around you are on the other side of a glass wall. I remember a stretch in my 40s. I won't lay out every detail because the details aren't the point and they just sound like complaint. But I'll say this: I lost work, the kind of work I'd built a name in, gone in a single conversation that lasted less than 10 minutes. And in roughly the same season, I lost a friendship I'd assumed would last my whole life. 30 years of knowing a man, and it came apart over something that, looking back, was almost small. A misunderstanding neither of us was willing to be the first to mend. Pride, mostly. We let pride do what no enemy could have done. And then, while I was still reeling from both of those, I found myself sitting in a hospital corridor at 2 in the morning, waiting for news about someone I loved, news I was afraid to hear. All of it at once. It felt deliberate, like some unseen hand had drawn up a schedule specifically to take from me everything I leaned on, one piece at a time, just to see what was left when the leaning was gone. And the thing I remember most clearly from that whole stretch isn't the fear, though there was plenty of it. It's the silence, the way the phone simply stopped ringing, the way people who'd always been around when things were good seemed to quietly evaporate, the way mist burns off a field once the sun gets high. No one announced they were leaving. They just weren't there anymore. For a long time, I took that as cruelty, and it made me hard toward people. Now, with years between me and it, I think it was something gentler than cruelty, even if it didn't feel gentle. I think some people can only stand near you in the sunshine. It isn't malice in them. It's that they don't have the constitution for the rain. They were built for fair weather, and fair weather is where they stay. And when my rain came, when it really came, it did something I couldn't have done for myself. It sorted my life out. It showed me, plainly and without mercy, who was actually standing beside me and who had only ever been standing beside my circumstances. I didn't want that knowledge, but I've never been able to give it back. Elijah knew that silence. Here's a man who had just called down fire from heaven in front of a whole nation, the highest moment of his prophetic life. And within a day, he was running for his life into the wilderness, sitting under a solitary tree, asking God to let him die. "I've had enough," he said. "Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors." The greatest victory and the deepest collapse, back to back. And what did God do? He didn't lecture him. He let him sleep. He sent food. He let him rest. And then he spoke, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a low whisper, a still small voice. I hold on to that. Because when you're in the worst of it, you keep waiting for God to show up like an earthquake. You want the dramatic rescue, the sky to split open, the problem to vanish. And instead, what usually comes is quieter than that. A small mercy, a night of unexpected sleep, a stranger's kindness, a single sentence someone says that lands in exactly the wound that needed it. You almost miss it because you were watching for thunder. If you're in the silence right now, I want you to hear me. The silence is not absence. Joseph's prison was silent. Elijah's wilderness was silent. The silence is where the real work gets done, and it almost always feels like nothing is happening at all. Let me give you the third thing. You are going to come out of this changed, and you will not get to choose how. That sounds ominous. I don't mean it to be. I mean it as a kind of warning and a kind of comfort at the same time. Here's what I've watched in my own life and in others. Suffering doesn't make people better by default. That's a sentimental lie, and I won't sell it to you. Suffering makes some people bitter, hard, suspicious, closed. I've met men who went through difficulty and came out smaller than they went in. Careful in the worst way, walled off, unable to trust anyone or enjoy anything. The pain didn't refine them. It calcified them. So the suffering itself isn't what changes you for the good. What changes you is what you do inside it. The posture you take, whether you let it make you tender or let it make you stone. Job is the one everyone reaches for here, and usually they reach for the wrong part. They reach for the ending, the restoration, double of everything he lost. But that's not where the value is. The value is in the long middle, the part where he sat in ashes and argued with God and refused to either curse him or pretend everything was fine. Job did something rare. He stayed honest in his pain. He didn't lie about how bad it was to make God look better, and he didn't abandon God to make himself feel justified. He held both the agony and the faith in the same two hands, and he wouldn't let go of either one. That's the posture. That's the thing that changes you well instead of badly. Refusing to lie about your pain and refusing to let go of the thread that connects you to something larger than the pain. Most people drop one or the other. They either pretend they're fine, which rots them from the inside, or they let go entirely and drift into a hardness they never come back from. I'll tell you when I learned this. It was in that hospital corridor I mentioned. Somewhere around the third hour, I stopped praying for the outcome I wanted. I just couldn't anymore. And instead, I found myself saying something simpler. I said, I don't understand this, and I'm not going to pretend I do, but I'm not letting go. That was the whole prayer. I don't understand, and I'm not letting go. And something settled in me that night that has never fully unsettled since. Not peace exactly. Something underneath peace. A floor I didn't know was there. The news, when it came, was hard. Not the worst, but hard. And I'll be honest with you, there was no miracle that night, no sudden reversal, but I walked out of that building a different man than I walked in, and the difference wasn't bitterness. It was that I finally knew the floor was real. I'd been afraid my whole life that if I ever fell far enough, there'd be nothing to catch me. That night, I fell about as far as I could, and there was a floor. After that, fear had less to work with. Let me say something now about time, because I think this is where most people break. When you're suffering, time deceives you. The present feels permanent. The mind cannot conceive that this will ever not be your reality. You wake up inside it, you carry it all day, you take it to bed with you, and the cruelest thought it whispers is this: it's always going to be like this. It is not always going to be like this. I can tell you that with the certainty of a man looking backward over a long life. Every single thing I was sure would never lift, lifted. Not on my schedule, not in the shape I expected. Some of it took years longer than I thought I could endure, but none of it stayed. The permanent feeling was a liar every time. Think about the children of Israel in the wilderness, 40 years, a whole generation. To the people living it, that wasn't a chapter in a story. That was their entire lives. People were born in that wilderness, grew up in it, and the older ones died in it without seeing the other side. From inside, it must have looked like the wilderness was simply the world now, the permanent condition. But it wasn't. It was a passage, a long one, an unbearable one, but a passage. The land was always coming. They just couldn't see it from where they stood. You can't see it from where you stand either. That's not a flaw in you. That's the nature of being inside something. The future self I'm pretending to speak for, the one who already made it, he can see it precisely because he's no longer in it. And the one thing he'd want you to know above all is that the view changes. What looks like the end of everything from inside looks like a turning point from the outside. Same event, completely different meaning, depending on where you're standing in time. Now, I want to address something directly, because I'd be a coward not to. Some of you listening are not in a poetic kind of suffering. Some of you are in the kind that makes a man wonder whether it's worth continuing at all. I won't be glib about that. I'm an old man and I've stood close to that edge myself, and I've known people who didn't step back from it. So let me speak plainly. If you're in that place, if the thought has crossed your mind that the people in your life would be better off, or that the pain has no exit, please don't carry that in silence, and please don't take my words as your only counsel. Talk to someone, a real person, today. Someone trained for exactly this, or someone who loves you, or both. There is no shame in it. The strongest thing Elijah did in the wilderness wasn't the fire on the mountain. It was letting himself be fed and cared for when he wanted to die. Reaching for help is not weakness. It's the same instinct that kept him alive long enough to hear the whisper. I needed to say that because the rest of what I'm telling you only works for the living. Stay. Whatever it takes, stay. The future self I'm speaking for is only able to look back because he stayed. That's the only reason he exists at all. Let me return to the chosen ones, because that's the heart of this. I've come to believe that the people who suffer in particular ways, the ones who feel set apart, who feel like the difficulty in their lives is somehow disproportionate, who sense there's a purpose in it they can't name. I've come to believe they're being prepared for something they can't yet hold. I don't say that to flatter you. I say it because I've watched it happen too many times to call it coincidence. There's a pattern in Scripture, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The ones God uses heavily are almost always hidden first. Moses spent 40 years on the backside of a desert tending sheep before the burning bush. A prince reduced to a shepherd, a nobody, decades of obscurity. David was anointed king as a boy and then spent years running through caves like a fugitive before he ever sat on a throne. Paul, after his blinding encounter, disappeared into Arabia and obscurity for years before anyone heard from him. The pattern is hiddenness, then deployment, preparation in the dark, then assignment in the light. And the people inside the hiddenness almost never recognize it for what it is. They think they've been forgotten. They think they've been benched. They think their life is passing them by while everyone else moves forward. They haven't been forgotten. They've been put somewhere quiet enough to be made into something. I think, and this is just an old man's conviction, not a doctrine I'd force on anyone. I think some of the hardest seasons are not detours from your purpose. They are your purpose in its earliest form. The pit was Joseph's training for the palace. The desert was Moses' training for the deliverance. The cave was David's training for the crown. You don't get the throne without the cave. You can't skip the part you're in. It's not in the way of the thing. It is the thing, still unfinished. So when you ask, as everyone in a hard season eventually asks, why is this happening to me? Why now? Why this much? I'd gently turn the question around. Not why is this happening to me, but what is this happening for? The first question has no good answer and will torment you forever. The second one occasionally opens a door. I don't always know the answer to it. I want to be honest about that too. There are things I went through that I still don't fully understand, and I've made my peace with not understanding them. Not every hardship comes with a tidy lesson stapled to it. Sometimes the only thing you carry out is that you survived, and that the surviving made you someone who can now sit with another person in their dark and not flinch. Maybe that's the purpose. Maybe the purpose of your suffering is partly someone else, somewhere down the line, who's going to need a person who understands, and you're being made into that person right now, in the worst week of your life, without your consent and against your will. I'll tell you the last thing, and then I'll let you go. The future self, the one who survived everything you're going through, he is not a stranger. He's not some upgraded, unrecognizable version of you who left the old you behind. He's you, with more behind him. He carries everything you're carrying right now. He didn't forget it. He just stopped being crushed by it. And if he could reach back through the years and put a hand on your shoulder, I don't think he'd give you a strategy or a 5-step plan. I think he'd just tell you, hold on, you make it. It doesn't feel like you will, but you do. The mornings get easier than they are right now. The silence ends. The thing you can't see coming is already on its way. I'm Walter. I'm not your future, but I've walked far enough down the road to wave back at you and tell you it keeps going, and that it gets wider and gentler further on than it is at the narrow, frightening part where you're standing now. Before I leave you, I want to hear from you, and I mean that as more than a formality. If you've already survived something that once felt like it would end you, a season you were sure you wouldn't outlast, leave one sentence in the comments telling the rest of us what got you through, not the whole story. Just the one thing that kept you standing. Somebody reading is in the middle of theirs right now, and your one sentence might be the floor they didn't know was under them. Speak it for them, not for me, and let me pray with you before we part. Father, for the one listening who is in the narrow part of the road, who can't see past the fear of this week, be the floor under them tonight. Where they can't understand, give them the strength to stay anyway. Where they feel forgotten, let them feel found. You did not bring them this far to leave them in the dark, and the thing you are making of them is not finished yet. Hold them till morning. Amen.